History books really love a good king. Let's be honest, it's their conquests, their grand, sprawling empires, and the decisive, bloody battles they fought that absolutely dominate the pages we read in school. But if you look a little closer, behind many of the world's greatest and most enduring civilizations stood women who didn't just sit politely on a throne. They commanded battlefields, bankrupted rival empires, and completely rewrote history. Okay, let's dive into this, because today we aren't just talking about queens by title or, ceremonial figureheads. We're exploring the true architects of power, the rulers, the master strategists, the diplomats, and the warriors who quite literally shaped the destiny of nations.
For centuries, there was this lingering expectation that women should just quietly remain in the shadows of power. But historical reality, it tells a completely different story. These women weren't just wearing crowns, they were right there in the war rooms and on the front lines. They were actively negotiating complex peace treaties, commanding massive armies against terrifying odds, and building empires that changed the course of humanity forever.
To see exactly how they pulled this off, we're going to organize this explainer around 4 key archetypes of power during times of massive crisis: masters of strategy, warriors of resistance, architects of golden ages, and finally, a timeless legacy. And we are covering an immense timeline today. We're going from Cleopatra in 69 BC all the way up to Rani Lakshmibai in 1857. That is a span of nearly 2 millennia. And honestly, this proves right out of the gate that absolute female power and leadership isn't just some localized historical fluke. It's a constant. It spans across entirely different continents, cultures, and eras.
All right, let's jump into Section 1, Masters of Strategy. These are the queens who didn't just inherit power, they fiercely protected it. They outsmarted massive, aggressive empires using intellect, economics, and unparalleled diplomacy. Our first master strategist is undoubtedly one of the most famous figures in human history, Cleopatra VII of Egypt. Born in 69 BC, she inherited a kingdom that was rapidly losing power to a violently expanding Rome. But unlike a lot of her male rivals at the time, she was highly educated. She was actually the first in her dynasty to bother learning the Egyptian language, and she spoke as many as 9 languages fluently. She understood politics, economics, and diplomacy on a truly genius level. She famously leveraged incredible alliances, first with Julius Caesar and later Mark Antony, working furiously to preserve Egypt's independence against that looming Roman Empire. And while Egypt did eventually fall to Rome, her sheer political skill transformed her into an eternal symbol of female leadership and intellectual power.
This kind of strategic brilliance echoes perfectly in the 17th century with Queen Nzinga of Ndongo and Matamba in Africa. She was facing down aggressive European powers who were looking to expand their influence through outright conquest. So she deployed a masterclass 3-part approach: skillful diplomacy, vital strategic alliances, and brilliant military tactics to defend her kingdom against Portuguese colonial expansion. For decades, she fiercely resisted their pressure and effectively protected her people's independence. It was just a masterclass, and holding off a technologically superior force through sheer strategic brilliance.
Moving right along to Section 2, Warriors of Resistance.
You see, not all powerful queens ruled through diplomacy from the safety of a palace. When a crisis demanded it, these leaders stepped out of the throne room and right onto the blood-soaked front lines to physically lead rebellions. Imagine the absolute might of the Roman Empire at its peak. Now, imagine one determined woman bringing it to its knees. That was Queen Boudica of ancient Britain. In the 1st century AD, after Roman officials brutally mistreated her family and her people, well, they pushed her way too far. Boudica launched a massive, terrifying rebellion. Leading thousands of warriors, she absolutely destroyed Roman settlements. She famously burned early London straight to the ground and nearly drove the entire empire out of Britain. Though the rebellion was eventually crushed, her absolute determination made her an immortal symbol of courage and fierce national pride.
And this fierce spirit echoes centuries later in India. During the Indian Rebellion of 1857, British authorities attempted to just swoop in and annex the kingdom of Jhansi. Rani Lakshmibai flatly refused to surrender her home. Historical accounts actually describe her fighting bravely in full armor, carrying her child strapped to her back. I mean, just think about that incredibly powerful image for a second. Riding into battle against a colonial superpower, sword in hand, with your kids strapped to you, absolutely incredible. Although she died in battle at a young age, she cemented herself as one of India's greatest heroes and an ultimate symbol of resistance against colonial rule.
Okay, let's pivot to our third category, Architects of Golden Ages. When we look at the visionary builders of history, a fascinating pattern emerges. Now, what's really interesting about this is the direct link between the massive crises they faced and the monumental legacies they built. Zetian fought the deep traditional exclusion of women, yet expanded territory and promoted officials purely on merit. Elizabeth I inherited vicious foreign enemies and deep religious conflict, but defeated the Spanish Armada and laid the foundation for a sprawling empire. Catherine the Great had to rise to power as an absolute outsider, a foreigner, yet completely modernized Russian society. Let's look a little closer at how they pulled this off.
Starting with Empress Zetian, she remains the absolute only woman in Chinese history to rule as emperor in her own right. Rising from a royal concubine to the highest position in the empire during the 7th century, she didn't just break the glass ceiling, she completely shattered patriarchal traditions. Her reign was all about building a deeply thriving state through immense territorial growth and economic strength. She brilliantly implemented merit-based promotions, rewarding actual talent over wealthy family backgrounds. She even created a secret police force to root out opposition, basically proving she could play the political game better than anyone. Even her fiercest critics had to admit, she was an incredibly effective ruler.
4. That is the number of decades Queen Elizabeth I ruled England completely independently, taking the throne in 1558 amidst massive political division and threats from powerful foreign enemies. She flat out refused to marry and surrender her authority to a husband. Ruling as the Virgin Queen, her intelligence and extreme patience completely transformed England into a rising global power. This massive 4-decade reign didn't just see the legendary defeat of the Spanish Armada in 1588. It laid the foundation for Britain's future empire and oversaw the cultural explosion that gave us William Shakespeare.
Then we have Catherine the Great. Born in Germany, Catherine rose to become Empress of Russia in 1762. And she wasn't just ambitious, she was fiercely intellectual. She backed up her massive territorial expansion with deep educational reforms. She was actively corresponding, basically 18th century networking, with leading philosophers of the Enlightenment. Through sheer willpower and intellect, she modernized Russian society and transformed the nation into a dominant European superpower by the time of her death.
Which brings us to our final section, a timeless legacy.
When we step back and synthesize the historical journeys of these incredible women, a really powerful and unified picture starts to emerge about what power truly looks like. What made these queens so extraordinary wasn't merely that they held power in societies dominated by men. It was their undeniable ability to lead effectively during absolute crises. Whether they were facing invading armies, political conspiracies, economic collapse, or social unrest. So the crucial point is that they all shared these defining qualities of great leadership: courage under fire, unmatched intelligence, unyielding resilience, and bold vision. And listen, these aren't just historical fun facts. These are the exact blueprints for crisis leadership that modern CEOs and world leaders study today. They completely refused to accept the limitations imposed upon them. They weren't just passive exceptions to history, they were active creators of it. Their leadership was determined by their sheer ability and character, not their gender.
As we wrap up this explainer, we are left with a massive question. If these architects of power so completely reshaped the world, whose history are we really telling when we only focus on the kings? The physical empires of Cleopatra, Boudica, and Nzinga might have faded, and their kingdoms may have disappeared, but their names echo through the centuries. They negotiated treaties, commanded massive armies, and inspired entire nations in an age when many believed women belonged in the shadows. Think about that next time you hear a story about the past. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the history you've been taught.